The sky above Keelan 9 had not been blue for 3 days. It had become something far worse, a wound. From the surface of the mining colony, the heavens looked as if a giant claw had ripped open reality itself. Rivers of violent lightning crawled through the clouds. Massive rings of distorted space rotated silently across the horizon. Every few seconds, the air trembled with invisible shock waves, powerful enough to make buildings groan. The colonists had stopped calling it a storm. Now they simply called it the death zone. Ethan Ward stood on the observation platform of Outpost 7, staring through the reinforced glass while emergency sirens echoed across the valley. "Any updates?" he asked. A technician glanced at a holographic screen inside. "Only that everyone is still terrified." "That's not an update, that's a personality assessment." A few nearby operators laughed despite themselves. Humor had become valuable lately. Fear was free. The storm had appeared 72 hours earlier without warning. Hundreds of drones had been sent inside. None had returned. 3 rescue shuttles had attempted entry. 2 exploded. The third vanished. Scientists, soldiers, engineers, and politicians had spent 3 days arguing about what exactly was happening. Meanwhile, the storm kept growing. Outside the station windows, enormous pillars of blue energy rose from the ground and disappeared into the swirling heavens. They looked almost beautiful. Almost. A loud beep interrupted Ethan's thoughts. The central command display suddenly lit up. Several operators immediately turned toward it. "New signal!" someone shouted. The room became silent. A holographic map expanded above the command table. At the center of the storm, buried beneath layers of interference, a faint emergency beacon blinked weakly. Ethan narrowed his eyes. "That's impossible." "Apparently not." The beacon pulsed again. Once, twice. Then a damaged visual feed appeared. The image was distorted, broken, covered in static, but it showed enough. A woman. She was lying motionless among twisted metal debris. Silver armor covered most of her body. Long silver hair spilled across the ground. And unlike any human, elegant long ears extended from beneath her hair. The room erupted into conversation. "Alien! How is she alive? Can anyone identify her species?" "No idea." Another pulse of static swept through the image. The woman didn't move. For a moment, Ethan thought she was dead. Then one finger twitched. The room went quiet again. Someone swallowed nervously. "She's alive." The statement somehow made everything worse, because now there was a person trapped inside the most dangerous phenomenon anyone had ever witnessed. A commander stepped forward. "Run probability calculations." Several holographic screens appeared instantly. Numbers flooded the air. The colony's quantum processors began calculating survival scenarios. After 20 seconds, the answer appeared. The room groaned. "Well?" Ethan asked. The technician looked uncomfortable. "Entering the storm gives a 99.8% mortality rate." Ethan raised an eyebrow. 99.8? "Yes." "So technically there is hope." "No, technically there is paperwork before death." Several people laughed. The commander did not. His expression remained grim. "No rescue mission." The room immediately became tense. "What?" Ethan asked. "We're not sacrificing more lives. She's still alive. And if we send people inside, they'll die too." Ethan looked back at the flickering image. The woman remained trapped beneath what appeared to be part of a collapsed energy tower. Lightning crawled across the wreckage around her. Every second she stayed there reduced her chances of survival. Yet nobody moved. Nobody volunteered. Nobody even pretended to. Because everyone knew the calculations. The storm killed everything. Machines, ships, people. Even long-range scanners struggled to function near it. The commander folded his arms. The decision is final. The meeting dissolved into frustrated conversations. People returned to their stations. Others simply avoided looking at the screen. Ethan remained where he was, watching. Minutes passed, then hours. The beacon continued blinking. Still alive, still waiting. Outside, the sky darkened further. A massive arc of energy stretched across the clouds like a glowing scar. Somewhere in the distance, thunder shook the colony. Ethan exhaled slowly. Something about the situation bothered him. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the fact that an entire station full of trained professionals had accepted defeat. Or maybe it was because every time he looked at the woman, he imagined being trapped there himself, waiting, knowing nobody was coming. A young technician approached him. "You should get some rest." Ethan glanced at her. "Can she?" The technician didn't answer, because they both knew the answer. No. The woman trapped inside the storm probably couldn't rest. She was too busy trying not to die. Ethan looked through the glass once more. The storm crackled across the horizon. Violent, impossible, deadly. Then he smiled slightly. It was the kind of smile that usually worried his commanding officers. The technician immediately noticed. "Oh no." "What?" "I know that look. You don't know anything. You're about to do something incredibly stupid." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "That's a surprisingly accurate assessment." The technician covered her face. "Please don't." Ethan's eyes remained fixed on the distant storm. Far away, hidden beneath layers of energy and chaos, a lonely beacon continued blinking, waiting for someone, anyone, to come. And for the first time since the signal appeared, Ethan Ward began thinking less about the odds of survival and more about how fast he could steal a shuttle. The shuttle bay doors were not designed to open without authorization. Unfortunately for the engineers who had designed them, they had never met Ethan Ward. The massive metal barriers slowly separated with a groan, revealing the nightmare that waited beyond the colony. Purple lightning crawled across the sky. Entire sections of the atmosphere twisted into spiraling funnels of glowing particles. Reality itself seemed unstable. Ethan sat inside a compact reconnaissance shuttle while warning messages covered every display. Critical threat detected. Entering restricted zone. Survival probability 0.2%. He stared at the numbers. That's still not zero. The shuttle's artificial intelligence immediately responded. "Your interpretation of statistical data is deeply concerning." "Thank you." That was not a compliment. Ethan grinned and pushed the throttle forward. Behind him, alarms suddenly erupted throughout the colony. Apparently, someone had finally noticed the missing shuttle. A communication channel opened. The commander's face appeared on the screen. "Ethan!" "Good morning, sir." "It is absolutely not a good morning." "Fair point. Turn that shuttle around immediately." Ethan looked out the cockpit. The storm dominated half the horizon. "No." The commander looked ready to explode. "You are violating direct orders." "Technically, yes." "Technically?" "Well, practically too." "Ethan!" The transmission ended, not because the commander disconnected, because the shuttle entered the outer edge of the storm. Everything changed instantly. The stars vanished. The sky disappeared. The universe became a violent ocean of energy. The shuttle shook so hard Ethan's teeth rattled. Blue lightning struck nearby, then another, then 5 more. The sensors immediately began malfunctioning. Navigation systems blinked on and off. Artificial gravity fluctuated. For one terrifying second, the shuttle floated upside down before correcting itself. "Wonderful," Ethan muttered. The AI sounded nervous now. "Recommend retreat." "You recommended retreat before we left." "My recommendation has become significantly stronger." Outside the cockpit, fragments of twisted metal floated through glowing clouds of charged particles. Some debris appeared ancient, pieces of starships, broken satellites, ruins from civilizations Ethan didn't recognize. It was as if the storm had been collecting wreckage for centuries. A sudden flash illuminated something enormous in the distance. Ethan froze. What was that? The sensors struggled to focus. For a brief moment, he saw the outline of a colossal structure floating inside the storm. An enormous ring, thousands of kilometers wide, covered in alien symbols. Then it vanished behind a wall of crackling energy. The AI immediately registered the anomaly. Object not recognized. No kidding. The storm grew denser. Visibility dropped. Several displays died completely. Only the emergency beacon remained visible. A single blinking light ahead, like a lighthouse guiding ships through a sea of madness. Ethan followed it. Minutes passed. Each one felt longer than the last. The shuttle groaned continuously. The hull temperature climbed. Energy shields dropped to 60%, then 50, then 40. A warning siren began screaming. Hull integrity compromised. Please stop saying encouraging things. The beacon suddenly appeared on the forward display. Distance, 2 kilometers. Ethan exhaled. Finally. Then the storm hit harder. A massive wave of energy erupted from nowhere. The shuttle spun violently. The cockpit filled with sparks. Several systems exploded. Smoke poured from a side panel. Shields offline. Fantastic. That statement appears dishonest. Ethan laughed despite himself. He wasn't sure whether fear or adrenaline was keeping him calm. Maybe both. The beacon was only hundreds of meters away now. Through the distorted atmosphere, he finally saw the crash site. A giant metallic tower had collapsed across a field of shattered machinery. Glowing energy leaked from cracks in the structure. At its base lay the alien woman. She was exactly where the transmission had shown her. Motionless, half buried beneath twisted debris. Silver armor covered her body. Even from a distance, she looked unusual. Not frightening, not monstrous, just different. Her face looked almost human, but her long, elegant ears emerged through strands of silver hair. The moment Ethan saw her clearly, he realized she was younger than he had expected. Not elderly, not a veteran commander, a woman perhaps only a few years older than himself. The shuttle landed roughly. The moment the hatch opened, the storm assaulted him. Wind screamed, energy crackled through the air. The ground vibrated beneath his boots. His protective suit immediately activated. Blue barriers formed around him. Environmental conditions lethal. Thanks. You are welcome. Ethan began moving toward the wreckage. Every step felt heavier. The air itself seemed alive. Distorted gravity pulled at him from random directions. Twice he nearly fell. Finally he reached the woman. Up close, she looked even stranger, and somehow more impressive. Her silver armor was covered in symbols that softly glowed beneath layers of damage. Several sections had been shattered. Burn marks covered one shoulder. A deep cut ran across her arm. Yet she was still alive. Barely. Her eyes remained closed. Her breathing was weak. The collapsed tower pinning her down was massive. Ethan examined it, then sighed. Oh, that's unfortunate. The AI responded immediately. What is unfortunate? That's really heavy. The AI paused. A remarkably insightful observation. Even Ethan laughed. Then he grabbed the wreckage. Muscles strained. The powered exoskeleton inside his suit activated. Servo motors roared. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the metal shifted. Slowly, painfully, the tower lifted just enough. Ethan dragged the woman free. The instant she was clear, the structure collapsed completely. The ground shook. Energy erupted everywhere. Then the woman suddenly opened her eyes. Brilliant silver eyes. For one brief second, they focused directly on him. Confused, disoriented. Then she whispered something in a language he didn't understand, and lost consciousness again. Ethan stared. Well, at least she's polite. The AI interrupted. Immediate evacuation recommended. For once, Ethan agreed. He turned toward the shuttle and felt his stomach drop. The reconnaissance craft was on fire. A massive section of its hull had been ripped open by lightning. The engines were dead. The storm had claimed it. There would be no flying home. Ethan looked at the unconscious woman. then at the burning shuttle, then back at the woman. "Oh," the AI spoke carefully. "You appear to have identified a problem." Ethan sighed deeply. A very long walk suddenly awaited him, and somehow he had the feeling things were about to get much worse. For nearly a minute, Ethan simply stared at the burning shuttle. The shuttle stared back, or at least it would have if shuttles possessed eyes. Flames crawled across the ruined hull, while chunks of molten metal dripped onto the ground. One engine detached completely and disappeared into the glowing fog of the storm. Ethan sighed. "Well," the AI spoke through the damaged suit communicator, "I detect disappointment in your voice." "You think?" "The shuttle appears unavailable." "It exploded." "That is a more accurate assessment." Ethan rubbed his forehead. The nearest safe zone was over 20 kilometers away. Under normal conditions, that distance would be manageable. These were not normal conditions. The storm continued roaring around them like an angry cosmic beast. Energy bolts struck the ground. Gravity fluctuated randomly. The laws of physics appeared to be negotiating among themselves. And now he had to cross all of it on foot, while carrying an unconscious alien woman. He looked down at her. Silver hair covered part of her face. Despite the injuries and dirt, she looked strangely peaceful. The elegant, long ears emerging from her hair twitched slightly in the wind. "You're lucky you're unconscious." The AI immediately asked why. "Because if you were awake, I'd make you help carry yourself." The AI paused. "I believe that is biologically impossible." Ethan smiled. Then he carefully lifted her onto his shoulder. The moment he stood upright, he regretted every life decision that had brought him to this point. "Oh," the AI responded. "New problem detected?" "She's heavier than she looks." The AI considered this. "Perhaps her species possesses greater bone density. Perhaps she secretly swallowed a small moon." The journey began. Step by step, Ethan moved away from the wreckage. The storm showed no mercy. Winds slammed into him from different directions. Invisible gravity currents tugged at his body. Several times he nearly lost his footing. The suit's stabilizers worked continuously to keep him upright. Hours seemed to pass. In reality, only 30 minutes had gone by. The storm distorted more than space. It distorted time itself. At one point, Ethan glanced toward a distant mountain. A moment later, the mountain appeared upside down. Then it disappeared entirely. "Please tell me that wasn't real." The AI answered. "I cannot." Very comforting. The beacon marking the colony remained visible on his navigation display. A tiny blinking light. Far away. Far too far away. Suddenly the woman shifted slightly. Ethan froze. Her eyes fluttered open. Brilliant silver. For several seconds she seemed confused, disoriented. Then she looked directly at him. The expression on her face suggested she was trying to understand why she was currently hanging over the shoulder of a complete stranger. Honestly, Ethan wasn't entirely sure either. She spoke weakly. The language sounded musical and unfamiliar. Ethan understood none of it. "Sorry, human." The woman blinked. He pointed to himself. "Ethan," then pointed at her. "You." The woman stared. "Ethan," he nodded. "Correct." A weak smile appeared on her lips. Then she lost consciousness again. "Great conversation," the AI agreed. Communication efficiency was limited. The journey continued. Another hour passed. The storm became increasingly violent. Blue lightning struck a few meters away. The explosion threw Ethan backward. He hit the ground hard. The woman nearly slipped from his shoulder. For several terrifying seconds, neither moved. Then Ethan groaned. "I hate this planet." The AI corrected him. "This is technically a moon." "I hate this moon." Satisfied, he stood again. The storm wasn't the only danger. Creatures lived inside it. The first sign came when motion appeared within the fog. Several glowing shapes moved between the energy currents. Ethan stopped walking. The shapes stopped too. Yellow eyes stared back. A low growl echoed through the darkness. The AI immediately identified elevated threat levels. Excellent. The creatures emerged. Four-legged predators, large as ground vehicles. Their bodies shimmered with electrical energy. Every step caused sparks to jump from their claws. One growled, another circled. Ethan tightened his grip on the woman. Of course, the AI sounded curious. Why are you unsurprised? Because today has been terrible. The first creature lunged. Ethan reacted instantly. His combat rifle fired. Blue plasma bolts illuminated the storm. One predator collapsed. The others attacked. The fight became chaos. Energy, claws, plasma fire, screaming winds. Twice Ethan nearly fell. 3 times he nearly lost the woman. Finally, the remaining predators retreated into the fog. Silence returned. Breathing heavily, Ethan checked the unconscious alien. Still alive, still unconscious, still heavy. You're missing all the fun. A sudden tremor shook the ground. The storm changed. Every warning system in the suit activated simultaneously. Danger, gravitational collapse detected. Ethan looked upward and immediately wished he hadn't. A gigantic vortex had formed overhead. Thousands of energy streams spiraled toward a single point. The phenomenon looked like an entire galaxy collapsing into itself. Reality twisted visibly. Mountains bent. Light curved. Even sound became distorted. The AI spoke urgently. We must move. For once I completely agree. Ethan began running, or at least something resembling running while carrying another person. The vortex expanded rapidly. Chunks of rock lifted from the ground and floated into the sky. A crashed starship rose beside them before being torn apart. The storm was consuming itself. Everything nearby would soon be destroyed. Ethan pushed forward with everything he had left. The colony beacon blinked on his display. Closer now. Still distant, but closer. Then something unexpected happened. The woman opened her eyes again. This time she remained conscious. Her silver gaze fixed on the approaching vortex. For the first time, genuine fear appeared on her face. She whispered a single word. A word Ethan didn't understand. Yet somehow he knew it mattered. Because the moment she spoke it, the color drained from her face, and the giant vortex above them began accelerating. The giant vortex above them expanded with terrifying speed. What had once looked like a distant anomaly now dominated half the sky. Millions of glowing particles spiraled toward its center. Lightning curved unnaturally around it. Entire sections of the storm were being pulled inward. Even the air felt different, heavier, as if reality itself had become unstable. Ethan kept moving. The unconscious woman remained draped over his shoulder, though she was no longer completely unconscious. Her silver eyes opened occasionally. Each time she looked toward the vortex, fear flashed across her face. Not concern, not worry, fear. The kind of fear that belonged to someone who understood exactly what they were seeing. And that worried Ethan far more than the vortex itself. The AI suddenly interrupted. Warning, gravitational distortion increasing. I noticed. Your heart rate suggests otherwise. My heart rate suggests I'd rather be somewhere else. The ground trembled. A crack appeared beneath Ethan's boots. Then another. The terrain was literally being pulled apart. Chunks of rock rose into the air. Several boulders floated past him before vanishing into the glowing clouds above. The woman stirred again. This time she remained awake longer. She stared at Ethan, then at the storm, then back at Ethan, clearly trying to understand why a human was carrying her through what appeared to be the end of existence. Honestly, Ethan was still asking himself the same question. She whispered something. The translator software inside his suit attempted to process it. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then a rough translation appeared. Danger. Ethan laughed. That's what you've got? The woman blinked. Danger. She pointed upward. The translator improved slightly. Not storm. Ethan frowned. What do you mean, not storm? The woman struggled to speak. The translation system fought against the unfamiliar language. Finally, several fragmented words appeared. Gate. Open. Wrong. Then she lost consciousness once more. Ethan nearly stopped walking. Gate? What gate? Before he could think further, a violent pulse erupted across the landscape. A wave of blue energy exploded outward from the vortex. The shock waves slammed into him. The world vanished. For several seconds there was only light, endless blue light. Then reality returned. Ethan found himself lying on the ground. His ears rang. His vision blurred. The woman was still beside him, thankfully. The AI sounded alarmed. Temporal disruption detected. Ethan slowly sat up. I'm afraid to ask. You were absent for 23 seconds. That doesn't sound terrible. You traveled approximately 300 meters during those 23 seconds. Ethan stared. What? The AI remained silent. Apparently, even it found the situation concerning. The storm had become something far worse than a weather phenomenon. Space itself was breaking. Time was beginning to fail. Far above, the vortex continued growing. Then Ethan noticed something strange. A structure, hidden among the swirling energy. At first he thought it was another illusion. The storm produced plenty of those. But this object remained visible. A gigantic metallic arch floated in the sky, covered in glowing symbols, ancient symbols, the same symbols he had briefly seen earlier on the colossal ring. The woman had called it a gate, and somehow it was opening. A crack of brilliant white light appeared in its center. Ethan felt a chill run through him. Whatever existed on the other side wasn't meant to be here. The AI detected the anomaly too. Unknown energy signatures emerging. Define unknown. There are no records of them. Wonderful. Then the first object emerged. Something enormous moved within the light. Its silhouette dwarfed mountains. For several seconds, only a shadow was visible. Then the figure retreated back into the gate. Ethan stood frozen. What was that? No classification available. The AI rarely sounded uncertain. Now it sounded terrified. And that was new. The colony beacon flashed on his display. Only 6 kilometers remained. 6 kilometers. Under normal circumstances, that was nothing. Today it felt impossible. The woman suddenly opened her eyes again. This time she grabbed Ethan's arm. Hard, surprisingly hard for someone injured. Her silver eyes locked onto his. The translator finally managed a clearer sentence. Must close gate. Ethan frowned. How? The woman struggled to answer. Blood appeared at the corner of her mouth. Her armor flickered weakly. Then a new translation appeared. Core. Inside storm. Ethan immediately understood. The storm had a source, a center, and somehow it was connected to the gate. The realization made his stomach sink. He had hoped reaching safety would solve everything. Apparently it wouldn't, because whatever had created this disaster was still active, still growing. And if that gate fully opened, he didn't even want to imagine what might come through. The ground shook again, this time much harder. A mountain in the distance simply vanished. Not exploded, not collapsed, vanished, consumed by a rip in space. Ethan looked toward the colony beacon, then toward the gate, then at the injured woman. This day keeps getting worse. For the first time since he had found her, the woman managed a faint smile. The translator processed her words. Yes. Ethan laughed despite everything. The universe might have been ending. Reality might have been collapsing. An impossible gate might have been opening above them. Yet somehow the first full sentence they successfully shared was a complaint. A deafening roar suddenly echoed across the storm. Both Ethan and the woman looked upward. The crack of white light inside the gate widened dramatically. Something was coming through. Something enormous. And this time it wasn't turning back. The thing emerging from the gate was not a ship. It was not a creature either. At least not in any way Ethan understood. The massive silhouette slowly pushed through the crack of white light, and with every meter it crossed into reality, the storm became more violent. Lightning erupted across the sky. Floating mountains shattered. Entire sections of the horizon folded inward like paper. For a brief moment, Ethan thought he was looking at a living fortress, a structure thousands of meters long. Its surface appeared metallic, yet it moved like something alive. Countless glowing eyes opened across its body, then closed again. The sight made Ethan uncomfortable in ways he couldn't explain. The woman beside him stared upward. Fear filled her silver eyes. Not fear for herself, fear for everyone. The translator struggled before finally producing a sentence. Void Sentinel. Ethan looked at her. That thing has a name? She nodded weakly. Then another translation appeared. Ancient weapon. Whose weapon? The woman hesitated. The translator answered, Nobody remembers. Ethan didn't like that answer, not even slightly. The giant entity continued emerging from the gate. Far above, energy storms spiraled around its enormous frame. The colony beacon flashed on Ethan's display. 4 kilometers. They were getting closer. Unfortunately, so was the giant nightmare in the sky. The AI suddenly interrupted. Multiple spacecraft detected. Ethan immediately turned. For the first time in hours, something familiar appeared beyond the storm. Ships. Human ships. 3 rescue craft pushed through the outer edge of the death zone. Apparently, the colony had finally decided to come after him. The communication channel activated instantly. The commander's face appeared again. He looked exhausted and furious. Ethan Ward. Hello again. You stole government property. Technically borrowed. You entered a lethal anomaly. Accurate. You ignored every direct order. Also accurate. The commander closed his eyes. For several seconds, he simply breathed. Then he finally spoke. Are you alive? Ethan smiled. Mostly. The commander immediately noticed the woman beside him. His expression changed. Is that the survivor? Yes. The commander leaned closer to the screen. Then his eyes widened. Apparently, the image scanners had finally identified the symbols on her damaged armor. The man froze. Completely froze. Ethan noticed immediately. What? The commander didn't answer. Instead, he whispered something to someone off-screen. Suddenly, several officers rushed into view. All of them looked shocked. Then the transmission cut out. Ethan blinked. That was strange. The AI agreed. Extremely strange. Before either could speculate further, the rescue ships were hit by a wave of distorted gravity. One vessel spun violently. Another lost power completely. The third vanished. Not exploded, vanished. Gone. The remaining ships immediately retreated. The commander's horrified face briefly returned. We can't reach you. No kidding. The storm is becoming unstable. Also no kidding. The transmission died again. This time, permanently. The woman suddenly grabbed Ethan's arm. Her strength surprised him. She pointed toward a distant ridge. At first he saw nothing. Then the fog shifted. A structure appeared. Ancient, massive, half buried beneath the landscape. Its design matched the symbols covering the gate. The translator activated. Core. Ethan stared. The storm's source? She nodded. For the first time, hope appeared in her expression. If core destroyed, the translator paused, then completed the sentence. Gate closes. Ethan looked toward the colony beacon. 3 kilometers. Then toward the giant structure. 2 kilometers in the opposite direction. He sighed. The AI already knew what he was thinking. No. I haven't said anything. You intend to move toward the source? Maybe. No. Ethan looked at the unconscious woman, then at the growing gate, then at the giant void sentinel emerging above them. Finally, he sighed. The AI immediately sounded disappointed. That sigh indicates a poor decision. Probably. I strongly advise against heroics. Noted. You never listen. Also noted. The woman actually laughed. It was weak, barely audible, but it was definitely laughter. For a moment, Ethan looked surprised. Then he laughed too. The universe was collapsing. Ancient cosmic horrors were arriving. Reality was breaking apart, yet somehow they were still finding reasons to laugh. The moment didn't last. A terrible sound echoed across the storm. The void sentinel moved. For the first time, thousands of glowing eyes opened simultaneously. A beam of white energy erupted downward. The distant horizon disappeared. Entire mountains vanished instantly. Not destroyed, erased, as though they had never existed. Silence followed. Even the storm seemed frightened. The woman looked toward the devastation. The translator activated again. This time the sentence emerged perfectly. If it fully awakens... She stopped. Her face became pale. Ethan finished the thought. Everyone dies? The woman slowly nodded. For several seconds neither spoke. Then Ethan adjusted his grip and carefully lifted her onto his shoulder again. The woman looked confused. The translator translated a single word. Why? Ethan started walking toward the ancient structure, toward the source of the storm, toward the place every survival instinct told him to avoid. A grin appeared on his face. Because I already stole a shuttle today. The woman blinked. Ethan shrugged. It would be a shame to stop making bad decisions now. For the second time, despite everything happening around them, she laughed. And together they disappeared deeper into the heart of the storm, while the giant weapon in the sky continued waking up. The closer they moved toward the ancient structure, the stranger the storm became. At first, Ethan thought exhaustion was affecting his mind. Then he saw three versions of himself walking beside him. One looked older, one had a beard, one appeared to be missing an arm. All three glanced toward him before vanishing into blue mist. Ethan stopped immediately. No, the AI responded. Clarification requested. I refuse. You refuse what? Whatever that was. The AI remained silent for several seconds. Then it answered. Reasonable. The woman on his shoulder opened her eyes again. This time she was awake enough to notice his expression. She followed his gaze toward the empty space where the alternate versions had appeared. The translator activated. Temporal echoes, Ethan sighed. Of course they are. The woman actually smiled. The expression transformed her face completely. For the first time since meeting her, she looked less like a wounded survivor and more like someone accustomed to confidence, someone powerful, someone important. Unfortunately, Ethan was too busy trying not to die to think much about it. The giant structure gradually emerged from the storm. With every kilometer, more details became visible. It was enormous, far larger than he had initially realized. Black metallic towers rose from the ground like gigantic claws. Ancient symbols glowed across the surface. Massive rings rotated slowly around a central sphere. The entire installation seemed partially buried beneath the landscape, as though it had existed long before the colony, long before recorded history, maybe even before humanity reached the stars. The sight made Ethan uncomfortable, not because it looked dangerous, because it looked old. Very old. The kind of old that civilizations usually wrote myths about. The woman stared at the structure. The translator whispered a single phrase. Prison. Ethan frowned. Prison? She nodded, then pointed toward the sky, toward the gigantic gate, toward the void sentinel. Understanding slowly appeared. The structure wasn't generating the storm. It had originally been containing something. The storm was a side effect. The prison was failing. And whatever had been locked away was escaping. Wonderful, the AI agreed. Situation assessment remains poor. They continued forward. The ground shook continuously now. Reality itself appeared unstable. At one point, Ethan watched a river flow upward into the sky. A minute later, it flowed normally again. Nobody questioned it. The day had gone far beyond normal explanations. Suddenly, alarms erupted inside his suit. Motion detected. Multiple contacts. Ethan immediately raised his rifle. Shapes moved between the towers ahead. Humanoid figures. Dozens of them. For a brief moment, he thought they might be survivors. Then he saw their eyes, glowing blue, emotionless, mechanical. Ancient robots emerged from the mist. Their bodies resembled skeletal soldiers forged from silver metal. Energy weapons glowed in their hands. The woman instantly recognized them. The translator produced one word: Guardians. The first robot raised its weapon. Ethan dove behind a fallen structure. A beam of energy sliced through the air where his head had been a moment earlier. Friendly robots would have been nice, the AI answered. Evidence suggests they disagree. More beams struck nearby. Metal exploded. Ancient stones shattered. The woman forced herself off Ethan's shoulder. She nearly collapsed, but somehow remained standing. Her damaged armor flickered. For the first time, Ethan saw symbols across her armor illuminate completely. Silver light surrounded her body. The robots hesitated. Every one of them froze. The woman stepped forward. Despite her injuries, authority radiated from her. She spoke in her native language. The sound echoed strangely through the storm. The robots immediately lowered their weapons. Ethan blinked. "Well," the AI sounded impressed. "That appears useful." The robots separated, creating a path toward the structure's center. Ethan looked at the woman. "You could have mentioned that." She smiled faintly, then nearly fell over. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. For a second, their eyes met. Silver eyes, tired but determined. The translator activated again. This time her voice sounded stronger. "My name," the system paused, then translated clearly. "Lyriana." Ethan stared. After everything that had happened, they were finally exchanging proper introductions. "Ethan," a small smile appeared. "I know." Together they entered the structure. The interior was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. Gigantic halls stretched beyond sight. Artificial stars floated beneath the ceiling. Machines larger than cities hummed quietly beneath layers of ancient metal. Everything still worked. After countless centuries, that fact alone was terrifying. At the center of the complex stood a colossal sphere. Thousands of energy streams flowed into it. The sphere pulsed with blue light. Every pulse synchronized with the storm outside. Every pulse widened the gate above. Lyriana's expression darkened. The translator activated. "Core." Ethan slowly approached. The sphere looked unstable. Cracks spread across its surface. Energy leaked from every fracture. The prison was dying. A sudden roar shook the structure. The entire facility trembled. Dust fell from above. Outside, the void sentinel moved again. The walls themselves seemed to groan in response. Then something changed. The sphere emitted a pulse unlike the others. A pulse carrying information. Images flooded the air. Ancient stars, lost civilizations, war, countless worlds burning, and one image larger than all the rest. The Void Sentinel. Not one, thousands, an entire army. Ethan felt cold, very cold, because the message revealed a terrible truth. The giant thing emerging through the gate wasn't the invasion. It was only the scout. Lyriana's face became pale. The AI fell silent. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Ethan looked toward the cracking sphere, then toward the widening gate visible through the ceiling. Finally, he sighed, a long, exhausted sigh. "I really should have stayed in bed today." For the first time in hours, Lyriana laughed openly. The sound echoed through the ancient chamber. Then another pulse shook the structure, and a massive crack appeared across the core. The prison was moments from failure. The crack running across the core expanded with a sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Ancient machinery trembled. Massive rings suspended around the chamber slowed visibly. The artificial stars embedded in the ceiling flickered. Outside, the storm answered. A roar echoed through the sky. Not thunder, not machinery, something alive, something ancient. Ethan looked upward through the fractured openings in the structure. The Void Sentinel had almost fully emerged from the gate. Its enormous form eclipsed entire sections of the horizon. Thousands of glowing eyes stared down upon the world, and behind it, inside the widening portal, countless distant lights waited. An army, a sleeping nightmare ready to awaken. The core pulsed again. A new crack appeared, then another. Lyriana's face hardened. The translator activated. If the core dies completely, she didn't need to finish. Ethan already knew. The gate would remain open. The prison would fail, and the galaxy would inherit a problem several million years old. The AI spoke. Probability of survival continues to decline. Ethan nodded. Consistent with my day. Surprisingly, Lyriana smiled. Then she stepped toward the core. The glowing symbols on her damaged armor brightened. Silver energy flowed around her. The ancient machines throughout the chamber immediately responded. Hidden systems awakened. Massive holographic structures rose from the floor. For the first time, Ethan realized the truth. The prison hadn't recognized Lyriana by accident. It knew her bloodline. Her people had built this place, or at least inherited responsibility for it. The realization answered dozens of questions at once. Lyriana placed her hand against the cracked core. The machine reacted instantly. A wave of silver light surged through the chamber. Ancient symbols ignited everywhere. For a brief moment, the expanding cracks stopped spreading. But only for a moment. Then blood appeared at the corner of Lyriana's mouth. She staggered. The effort was killing her. Ethan immediately stepped forward. Don't. She looked at him. The translator activated. Must. The core pulsed violently. The entire structure shook. Outside, another portion of the Void Sentinel emerged. The situation was running out of time. Ethan stared at the machine, then at Lyriana, then at the countless ancient systems surrounding them. An idea formed. A terrible idea. Unfortunately, most of his ideas seemed terrible. The AI recognized the expression instantly. No, you don't even know what I'm thinking. I know enough. Ethan walked toward a damaged control platform. Energy conduits extended from the core into the surrounding systems. Thousands of them. The prison wasn't powered by a reactor. It was powered by connections. Connections that were breaking. The AI suddenly understood. No. Yes. The plan is reckless. Also yes. It may kill you. That has become a recurring theme. Lyriana watched him in confusion. Then understanding slowly appeared. The translator struggled. No, Ethan smiled. He had noticed something during the journey, something important. Everyone kept calculating odds. Everyone kept discussing probabilities. Everyone kept waiting for someone else. The rescue teams, the commanders, the scientists, even the people who built this prison long ago. At some point, someone had to stop calculating and act. Otherwise, nothing changed. Ethan connected the power systems of his military exosuit directly into the damaged network. Alarms exploded instantly. The AI sounded horrified. This is a terrible idea. Probably. Catastrophically terrible. Possibly. Extremely catastrophic. You're becoming repetitive. The connection activated. Pain shot through Ethan's body. Every nerve seemed to ignite. The prison systems absorbed energy greedily. One conduit lit up, then another, then hundreds. Throughout the structure, dormant systems awakened. Massive rings accelerated. The ancient machines roared back to life. Outside, the storm began changing. The gate slowed. The widening portal hesitated. The Void Sentinel stopped moving. For the first time, the impossible creature seemed trapped. Lyriana stared in shock. The translator whispered one word. Impossible. Ethan laughed weakly. That's basically my specialty. The core blazed with light. Silver energy and human technology merged through pathways that had waited thousands of years for activation. Then the prison responded. A beam erupted from the structure. It struck the gate directly. The entire sky exploded with light. The Void Sentinel roared, not in anger, in defeat. The portal began shrinking. slowly, then faster. The creature fought desperately. Reality itself twisted around it. But the prison was winning. The ancient weapon was being forced back. The countless lights beyond the gate disappeared one after another. The army vanished. The invasion ended before it truly began. The portal collapsed. The void sentinel was dragged backward. Its final roar echoed across the stars. Then it disappeared. The gate closed. Silence followed. Absolute silence. The storm stopped. The lightning vanished. The distorted sky cleared. For the first time in days, sunlight touched the world. The death zone was gone. Ethan collapsed. Everything became dark. When he opened his eyes again, he was in a medical room. White walls, clean air, no storms, no ancient prisons, no cosmic horrors. A welcome change. The first thing he saw was Lyriana. She sat beside the bed, healthy now, her silver armor replaced by elegant royal clothing. Her long ears were no longer hidden beneath damaged hair. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Ethan sighed. "Please tell me I didn't hallucinate all of that." Lyriana laughed, a genuine laugh. "No." The translator no longer struggled. The universal systems around the room handled everything perfectly. Ethan blinked. "You speak my language now?" "I always could." He stared. "You let me carry you through a collapsing reality while pretending you couldn't speak my language?" A mischievous smile appeared. "Yes." Ethan covered his face. Unbelievable. Days later, the truth became public. Lyriana was not merely an important noble. She was one of the most influential rulers in the galaxy. Her death would have triggered wars across hundreds of systems. The attack had been an assassination attempt designed to create chaos. Instead, it had failed, because one stubborn human soldier ignored the odds. Across countless worlds, Ethan became famous. Governments honored him. Fleets saluted him. News channels called him a hero. Ethan found the attention exhausting. Several weeks later, standing beneath a peaceful sky, he watched a royal starship preparing to depart. Lyriana approached. The sunlight reflected from her silver hair. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she smiled. "You carried me when no one else would." Ethan shrugged. "You looked heavy too." She laughed again. The sound was warm, comfortable, different from the frightened woman he had first found, different from the reckless soldier who had entered the storm. Both of them had changed, not because they survived, because they had learned what courage truly meant. Sometimes courage wasn't winning battles. Sometimes it was simply refusing to leave someone behind. Lyriana extended her hand. "Visit my empire someday." Ethan smiled. "Only if there are fewer ancient cosmic monsters." No promises. The starship lifted into the sky. Ethan watched until it disappeared among the stars. Then he looked upward. The universe remained vast, dangerous, mysterious. But now, whenever someone told him something was impossible, he found himself smiling. After all, he had once carried an alien queen through the end of the world. And somehow, that no longer seemed like the strangest thing that could happen.